And we're trying to change that, is what you're saying.
I don't think that we're trying to change it. I think there's always going to be a component of that because we're next to the capital city. I don't think we have to become the capital city. I think you're still got, because you've got so much state of Oregon employment that's right next door, those folks are still going to be there, and they're still going to live in Keizer. So do they live in Keizer just because our taxes are low? I don't think so. I think that's what brings them. I think what keeps them is the way of life they have. And I've heard that over and over again. Gosh, you know, I had no idea how connected all of you guys are and how you work together. We almost work like a phalanx, you know, where when we want to get something done, we're on the march. And I mean, I go back to, remember when Mary Oprah was on the Salem-Keizer School Board, and they were going to try to bus our kids to West Salem, to that new West Salem High School. And I called them to say, you put us, where did they have us? Oh, they had us in the fire hall community room. I said, you're going to need a bigger room. And he poo-pooed me, kind of patted me on the head over the phone and said, well, thank you so much for calling, honey, but we think we've got this in hand. And I said, look, folks feel very passionate about this, and I think you're going to have over 100 people showed up. Then he had a full-throated laugh and said, well, you know, you're the 6th of these town hall meetings, and the most we've ever had is 17. Well, 120 people showed up. They couldn't hold that room. They were blown away, and our kids didn't go to West Salem. And that's exactly what happens. You know, you're not going to bus our kids who have gone to elementary school and now are just getting into middle school and are going to be Celtics, and they all their life, all their brothers and their sisters have gone to McNary. Now you're going to bus them to West Salem because you want more diversity in your school? Not in our town.
So you're the first woman mayor in Keizer, longest tenured mayor at 14 years.
Yes. Dennis said I'm a hog. We only got 5 pictures to put up on the wall. Dennis says that's because you're a hog.
In your mind, you might have touched on this a little bit earlier when we talked about some of the legacy projects. What do you think Lore Christopher's legacy is to Keizer? Is there one thing that you point to
No.
that people might say this is her legacy?
No. I mean, there's absolutely no. I've always worked with a team of people, so there's nothing that I could say, okay, I own that. There's nothing.
At this point in your life, you've had successful careers, you've been a successful mayor. At this point in time in your life, what would you, if you could, what would you say to a 17-year-old Lori Clark?
I would say don't wait to finish your education. Don't take that for granted. Don't take that lightly. It took me a long time to finish my bachelor's degree in 3 schools because I sloughed it off and I just didn't take it seriously. I always knew that I would finish, but I just didn't give it the importance that I really wish I would have early on.
Does any 17-year-old? I mean, that comes
No.
from
Life's experience.
and from parents that say,
Yeah.
go to school, stay in school.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I married Ron, I still had, I had like 17 credits, science and math. And I feel really bad that it was science and math because that's the rub, you know, that girls get. They're not going to be science and math people. I would really say to that 17-year-old, embrace science and math. You will use that the rest of your life. And it takes you to be on this end to say, hi, I really did need to know that. But when I went back to finish that bachelor's degree and then went on to get my master's, you know, by that time I was older enough and mature enough, and I really valued education. I really valued it, and I really embraced it. And it wasn't, when I was doing my master's degree and I was writing papers, it wasn't just good enough to get it done. I mean, I really put my heart into it because I really appreciated the opportunity. And so that's what I'd say. Get your education first. Any time you spend getting your education will serve you on the back end. Pay me now, pay me later.
How do you convey that message to teenagers?
Well,
How do you get them to understand that? There's a certain percentage of the high school students who are achievers, and they'll get scholarships and they'll go to college, but how do you get more kids to think about, especially if their parents aren't necessarily there pushing them for
Yeah.
education?
Well, I think personal stories are compelling. I really do. And I think that, I have students, predominantly women, who will contact me and say, I'd like to interview you for this or interview you for that. I always take them and I always talk to them. I think that mentorship programs are good. I think that we have to talk to them in a way that is interesting to them. We can't give a formal speech, and we can't force them to set through course after course of why you should go on to and gain additional education. I think you need to sit down and have coffee with them and meet them on their own terms. And then I interview for a living. I'm a recruiter, and my husband always says, you can find more out about someone in 15 minutes than everybody ever known. I'm genuinely curious. I'm genuinely interested. And I think that's what you have to be with kids. So tell me what you're thinking. Where are you going to be in 5 years? What do you want to do? If you could do anything you want, what do you want to do? How do you get there? And I think you've got to have those kinds of conversations. I'm not sure we do that. I think that counselors are overburdened in schools. There's too many, and they've got a pretty patterned way of interacting with the kids because they have to, because their time is valuable. But I don't think that's how you reach them. I think you've got to, you see those commercials on TV, and I think those really resonate when a teacher said, "You're really smart. You did that really well. I think you'd be really good in broadcasting," or "I think you'd really be a good writer." Those things make a difference. I remember my 4th grade teacher, Marion Austin, said, "You're a smart girl, and I think that you would be really good as class," I don't think it was called class president, but class representative or something. And I thought, what is that? 4th grade. But it was because my teacher, Miss Austin, had confidence in me. And she was not my mom. I think you take for granted that your parents are going to think you're special.
Right.
But when somebody who is unrelated to you says you're special, and I think particularly for women and for girls, when someone says you're smart, you can do this, you can do anything you want, I think that resonates with girls.
So your political career began in the 4th grade.
It really kind of did. I didn't realize that.
So how have you personally changed over the past 16 years?
You may not believe it, but I've become more patient and more reflective because I really was so naive that I really thought that the people that had come before me were just slow. They just took too long. And I was going to change things. I didn't change one thing. It was a deliberative process, deliberately. And so I came to understand that and appreciate and just take a breath and just enjoy the process and just slodge through to a good product. And I think that's been good for me as well. It's good for me in even dealing with family conflicts, and even deciding, gosh, when we were, the kids took us to Hawaii for our 25th anniversary, and so we had 8 or 9 of us there all together. That's a bunch to figure things out, and it was, I think that because of being mayor and working on committees and having to be patient and let people do what they want to do, it was a lot less directive and a lot more accepting. But everybody's going to do their own thing, and that's okay.
So, how has your style changed as far as you start the council meeting and you can be the person in charge. I have no problem being the person in charge. Is that different from when you were first mayor? Were you, I don't know the word, be tentative, or were you a little bit less willing to kind of step up and be in charge?
Oh, yeah, remember when we first started, because I'm an HR manager, we always want to reach out, let everybody be heard, give everybody an opportunity to speak. Those darn meetings went till 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I thought, this is ridiculous, starting at 7 o'clock and going for 5 hours. So out of the clear blue sky, one day I said, we're going to end the meetings at 11. We're not going to go past 11. And I talked with Chris and talked with Shannon and said, quit loading us up, because we're not making good decisions past 11. We're tired and grouchy, and nothing good can come of that. So we'll be out of here by 11. So no one stopped me. No one stopped me. I didn't have that power. That was a decision that could be made by city council. But I think everybody appreciated it and thought that's a great idea. And so yes, it's changed. Plus Bob was so smooth because he had done it for so long, and he was so smooth in the way that he conducted the meeting. I'm not at all that way. I stumble, I stammer, I make mistakes. And they've just reordered the agenda. Remember the last one I said, wait, this is a new agenda. But that's part of that.
Finally learned the old system.
Yeah, that's part of that. We have a much more casual and not formal city council meeting. Now, Kathy is much better than I, so she will probably have a much more structured council meeting, and she can pull it together. We've never had a more prepared mayor than Kathy. She's been on city council for 8 years. So I gotta tell you, I talked to we have the Mid-Willamette Valley Mayors Coalition. There's 34 mayors from all kinds of little cities, and we meet every other month. We just met at Mayor McCardle's house, and Kathy was there, and we had an opportunity to talk. And there's a couple of mayors that weren't re-elected, and they had a challenge, and they lost. And so it was, they were concerned for their community, and they felt bad, and they really didn't feel good about the person that had beat them in the election. And then it came to Kathy and I said, I've worked with her for 8 years. She's done heavy lifting on transportation. And here's what she's done on the Third Bridge. Here's what she's done on Shamawa. She's got a lot of accomplishments, but she knows the job. She knows it. And she was a terrific council president. I feel fabulous. It's so pleasant, and I think that has got to make Keizer folks feel very confident moving forward. She's not me. I'm not her. I don't know what her agenda is. We haven't talked about it, but just in knowing that you've got someone in that position who's been there for 8 years should make everybody feel confident that we're not going to go to hell in a handbasket, because she knows her way around. She knows the city staff. The city staff know her. And right there, establishing that rapport and building that trust with city staff with whom you've got to work with everything, we're miles ahead.
So what are the big things that will come up for Kathy as mayor and for the new council and for the city going forward?
Well, I think the UGB. I think the urban growth boundary is the next big decision they have to make. I don't know if that's going to happen you have to do so much pre-work to get that done. That might be a decision that's 4 years out. I hope it isn't, because I think with Keizer Permanente opening, I think that if we were able to get that into the UGB, we can start to, it'll take years to develop. So to get all of that business campus done, you're probably looking at 6 to 10 years. Look how long, the Keizer Station took. But the sooner that we can bring it in, the more that we can get started on that. And that'll be the next wave of jobs.
You mentioned, especially in the first year, you're not going to be going to the meetings. Do you foresee, after a year, or maybe even before the first year's up, like this instinct in you to say, I have to go to the council meeting, I have to speak about this, but I can't. But I want to go there and say my piece.
I don't see I don't see me doing that. You know, no, I don't see me doing that. I mean, if I've got I don't have to talk just to hear myself talk. I don't have to do that. You know, very, very seldom in city council, all the councilors speak. I don't so much. Only if I feel like I've got something to add to the conversation. I think that you've got a good city council. You've got experience in Dennis. You've got experience in Kathy, Freeman, Smith. So you've really only got Herrera and Rip that are new. So you've got some good experience there. I think that's about right. 2 new counselors every 2 years is about right to keep the continuity going. And I feel confident that they're going to do a good job. You got to believe in the process. And I don't think we have, you know, budget is going okay. It's going fine. When we were in the middle of the economic downturn, we had some folks that were unhappy, and evidenced of that, you know, they would come and speak to us frequently at city council, but I don't think you'll have that. I don't see any big issues.
Are there issues that you look back on over these last 14 years, either issue or issues, and say, you know what, I didn't handle that right, or I would do this differently, or I wish we had done this vote instead? Are there any issue or issues like that that you can think of?
Well, not issues. I mean, certainly there are
Or
actions
decisions or actions?
Yeah, sure. You know, I mean, I'm human, and I feel, and you know, sometimes you speak out and you do it too quickly. I mean, certainly if there was ever times, and I've heard from time to time that I was brusque with somebody who provided testimony, didn't realize it at the time, but that I'd hurt somebody's feelings. I felt terrible about that. I mean, you certainly don't want to do that. So, you know, those would certainly be times. You know, in interpersonal relationships with city council, and I'm not going to name names, but there were times when things got more heated than should have. I could have controlled that better, and I certainly didn't need to be the person that was adding fuel to the fire. I mean, certainly your business organizations such as SEDCOR and the Chamber have a piece of that, but also the policy, the people setting the policy have a piece of that in how welcoming they are, and city staff. I mean, community development, Nate Brown is going to set the tone, because they're going to come to our city and talk with either Chris or Nate and say, I'm thinking of locating to your city, tell me about it. Or they're going to come to me. It's whichever door they come in, we need to grab them and collectively answer their concerns and make a way for them, remove the barriers for them to come.
But that refers to businesses that come to us. I'm talking about recruitment, about calling New York and
Yeah.
say, hey.
Well,
we
SEDCOR
would
does
like
some
you
of that.
But SEDCOR is basically Salem, regardless of what their name is. If they're going to get a new business, they're going to get it for Salem. They're not going to get it for Keizer.
They pay a big chunk of their salaries. So yes, I think that that's true, but not all. And at the same time, they're certainly going to try to bring them to Salem. If they don't want Salem, they also represent a number of other cities. And I think that we're very attractive. So once they learn about us, and this has happened, once they learn about us and they're interested in us, I think SEDCOR works as hard for us as they do Salem once the business identifies, I don't want to be there, I want to be here. But I think that it's collective, Lyndon. There's not one person, and I don't think that we're big enough and certainly we don't, well, we have no space now. So it would, you know, we've got front River Road frontage that small businesses come into, but to talk about a large business and the type of recruitment you're talking about, where are we going to put them? We don't have any land. Now, if we're able to bring that into the UGB, a couple hundred acres, maybe we hire somebody limited duration to really work hand in hand with SEDCOR to recruit, to bring the types of businesses that we want into that area. Maybe we do.
How come nobody talks about redevelopment of parts of River Road? I mean, not the infrastructure, but I understand that it's more expensive to buy something that's there, tear it down, and build something new.
Considerably, like 5 times. And the problem that you have with that too is the rights of way, because they were already there, it's really hard to work within the rights of way. But not you can, so you've got, if you've got $1 million to invest, that $1 million goes a lot farther in new development than it does in redevelopment. But still, I mean, our commercial corridor is River Road, and so we have to continue to pay attention to River Road and continue to improve that. And I think that the council, and I don't know about the 2 new councilors, but certainly the council that's there now is recommitted to, when we sell Area C and all of, when that money comes back, that money's going back to River Road. I think everybody's still very committed to that. I know Brandon is, I know Freeman is, I know Kathy is, and I assume Dennis would be as well. There's 4 votes. That's all you need.
We had a poll question recently asking our readers to
Yeah,
judge
you
your job
jerks.
as mayor.
How did that turn out? I never did see the end of that.
I think about 50% said A.
50%? Wow, okay.
So we'll turn around the question and ask you, how would you grade your job as mayor? A through F scale.
Oh, I've been really fortunate. I mean, a lot of really good things have happened in the last 14 years, not because of me. I've just been there, hanging onto the coattails. I would say I'm probably a solid B. There's some things I could have done better. There's some things that together we did well.